Shalom. All praise to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Rakakwadash. Just came across this documentary by BBC World Service. World War II, Brown Babies, a little known part of British 20th century history. BBC World Service podcast. It's about Jake, as Jake goes around during war periods. What does Jake like to do? When they want to relax, is, obviously get a woman. And usually the women aren't of your own nation, so they could be whatever nation you're stationed at. And I'm just talking about this specific part here. Obviously, prior to history, since time began, we've been dealing with women of other nations. So it's not a new thing under the sun. I'm just talking about this particular part during World War II. And a lot of Jake, at that time, especially in the States and in the UK, where Jake built everything, but Jake wasn't allowed to fly the planes or, carry weapons, all that kind of thing. They were just basically the grunts, but they did all the key work, and they did everything for this whole world. Okay, if the world was so-called great, that's because Jake made it great through Jake's innovation and Jake's soul. Okay, Jake has invented everything. When I say Jacob, like Jacob, 12 tribes have invented everything. Anything and everything has been invented, from the smallest thing to the largest thing. I can't really mention everything because, I'll mention a few small things. In KFC, the original KFC, it wasn't no Colonel Sanders. Hennessy, it's by Jake. Traffic lights by Jake. Heart transplant by Jake. Peanut butter is invented by Jake. Ice cream is invented by Jake. Okay, need I say more, or shall I keep going? Okay, Jake is a so-called black man, so-called Hispanic man, so-called Native Indian man. Or wherever Israelites are scattered, no matter what they look like. This seed is, you come from the nutsack of the loins of an Israelite man. You are an Israelite. And this is about the hell, a lot of our people got, Jake sometimes not being allowed access to his children, Jake not being told the truth, or sometimes even Jake not even caring. Which I sometimes find it hard to believe, because most Jakes are quite caring, especially when it comes to their children. But that does happen. A lot of these Jakes have babies behind, man. Beautiful, beautiful little Israelite babies behind. That were put through the system and put through hell, man. I'm just gonna play a few segments. Let's go.
The Yanks are coming with a vengeance. Within 7 weeks.
When Black American GIs started arriving in Britain in 1942, the US Department of Defense produced a film to educate the young men who were due to be stationed here about what sort of welcome they might receive.
Well, goodbye, ma'am.
Goodbye. It's been very nice meeting you both.
Glad to meet you, I'm sure.
Funny you should come from Birmingham, too, isn't it? Have you come to my Birmingham, you come to my home and have a cup of tea with me.
It's estimated that at least 2 million American servicemen passed through the UK during World War II, and tens of thousands of them were black.
Now, let's be frank about it. There are colored soldiers as well as white here, and there are less social restrictions in this country. Just what you heard, an English woman asking a colored boy to tea. She was polite about it, and he was polite about it now. Look, that might not happen at home, but the point is, we're not at home. And the point is, too, if we bring a lot of prejudices here, what are we going to do about them?
The African American GIs stationed in Britain were forced to abide by the racial segregation laws that applied in the deep south of the US. Lucy Bland is a historian and the author of Britain's Brown Babies.
It's a segregated army. It says segregated in 1948. The vast majority of the GIs came from the deep south, and white GIs attacked black GIs with impunity. That's what's so shocking. The thing is, the American soldiers were all under the jurisdiction of the American military. So they had very particular jobs, the black GIs. They came and built the air bases. In fact, they were not allowed to fly. They built the air bases, they maintained the planes. They weren't allowed in Britain to bear arms.
The black soldiers often formed positive relationships with local people, And not just their skin color, but their manners and attitudes made them stand out from their white American counterparts.
They were pretty much all over the country, particularly sort of home counties, East Anglia.
And these areas were very white areas.
Very white areas. Many people had never seen a black person before, except probably on a film.
And how were the black GIs treated by the locals?
Well, the black GIs were often really liked, and they were seen as much more attractive than the white GIs because they were seen as much politer. So I think for many, they were very attractive.
But no matter how attractive, black GIs in the segregated US Army were forbidden from marrying their white girlfriends.
Although the US military denied that there was an actual law, every GI had to get permission from the commanding officer. And invariably, the commanding officers.
See, that most Jakes wanted to be with their lady. Most Jakes wanted to, even be a father to their children. Because at that time, even during World War II, we were in deeper hell. You know what I mean? But most Jakes came from a household where they had a father and a mother. So for their lady to raise their seed alone would be like something that they can't even comprehend. There's a better caliber of Jake back then. I mean, the caliber of Jake now is just nuts. But back then, Jake was still masculine and all that kind of thing. Jake did what Jake had to do, to keep food on the table and to keep the house from getting raided. And even then, doing everything by the so-called book of Esau's book, it still wasn't enough because Esau doesn't doesn't mean what he says and doesn't say what he means. That's just the way Esau is. As our Gadite brothers would say, Gad is a tribe of the tribe of Gad are the so-called Native Indians. They would say, the so-called white man or the white man has a forked tongue. Anyways, keep going to this.
Who were white would refuse it. And if pushed, their rationale was that back in the States, there were then 48 states, 30 had anti-miscegenation laws that forbade marriage between whites and blacks.
Local people in Ipswich were very surprised at how badly the black GIs were treated compared to the white.
Babs Gibson Ward is one of about 2,000 babies born to white British women and black American GIs during World War II.
The people in...
just imagine growing up, right? You're a brown baby, okay? Their sister was probably born in the 40s, early 50s, so, I remember, man, the UK in the 70s, man, from as far as I can remember, it was racist. And Esau, they pretended to paint a picture like so perfect. It was hell over here, man. It wasn't as bad as America, but it was bad over here. Okay? It got really bad. And can you just imagine being her, being passed around and adopted by Edomites? We don't know whether they're treating them right or wrong. And you're the only brown child in the school, in the house. There's no one you can relate to. When you're the only one that actually looks normal compared to those Edomites out there. This Israelite lady, this Judite woman here.
East Anglia were very supportive of the black GIs, and so they would invite them to their homes, invite them for family meals. The family that I was born into, they got to know my natural father very well.
Babs's mother was already married to an English naval officer when she met a black US Air Force engineer at a dance.
I guess one thing led to another.
There's nothing abnormal there with Edomite women behaving that way. Nothing abnormal there. It's normal behavior for Edomites. But our women are copying the same behavior.
When they started socializing with the local GIs, and they had, parties and dances and things like that going on.
Lucy Bland says even when the black GIs were off base, they were still subject to the US Army's racial segregation rules.
And then they had these dances again segregated by colours. So certain nights it will be a so-called black dance and then a white dance. And pubs also, quite a lot of pubs. This will be a black pub, that will be a white pub.
Then relationships started to form, and both my mother and her sister paired up with GIs.
Her mother fell pregnant in 1944, but she never told her black GI boyfriend about the baby. He returned to the US without knowing. When her mother's Navy officer husband returned after the war, he didn't question whether he was Babs's father until later.
My skin was very fair, and so she thought, I think, that she was going to get away with it and pass.
Look at that. The Edomite mother thought that, what, she could pass on a Jake baby to her Edomite boyfriend that came. Because remember, this Babs's mother was with an Edomite guy when she met Babs's dad, the Jake. Man, these women.
Me off as his, but by the time the following late spring happened, my skin started to darken significantly, and it was obvious that I wasn't.
It's a beautiful Jake door. Look at that. And Jake couldn't even see his baby grow up.
His child. But my stepfather, when he realized I was put out in the garden, at the bottom of the garden, and not allowed to come into the house, which meant that she knew that I would have to be put into care.
Nearly half of the mixed-race babies were given up to children's homes, but few were adopted. They were thought too hard to place.
Look at that beautiful Jake babies, man.
The African American press named these children brown babies. The British called them half-castes. When she was just 5 months old, Babs was sent away from her family in Ipswich. She lived in a children's home for the next 4 years. Then a foster family came forward, and it seemed like a new start. But Babs faced racial abuse at school.
People in the neighborhood wouldn't allow their children to play with me. And then when I went to school, most of the hostility was actually encouraged by my classroom teacher. He would actually get the children to ridicule me. He would take me out into the playground with the children and tell them that I could climb a pole like a monkey climbs a tree. And so.
Okay, so that gives you a bit of an indication, okay, in so-called modern times, okay, in the last 40, 50, 60 years, what happens to Jake, especially when they get lost in the system or they get treated a certain way, and this is just a real small speck, right, that's been happening to Jake for a long time, okay, from child slavery to rape to being lynched to being had your genitals cut off to being burned alive to your flesh being ground to paste so it can be used as lubrication for wheels of carriages back in the day, 17, 1800s, you know. You know, from sewing Israelite women's bellies up with live cats in them, to see which cat leaps out first, you know, to burying little children under the soil where their head is just sticking out, you know. So then the Esau would use their hobnail boots or their cowboy boots to kick the head off a child. To this hell. And then on top of that, Jake would fight the wars, build everything, and then still be treated like shit. And then still come home with sitting on the side of the road, me in a wheelchair, begging for money to survive. Ecclesiasticus 26:28. Ecclesiasticus 26:28. There be two things that grieve my heart, and the third maketh me angry. A man of war that suffereth poverty, that's Jake, and men of understanding that are not set by, and one that returneth from righteousness to sin. Okay, you go back to your old vomit. The Lord Yahweh Shemashai prepareth such, and one for the sword. A lot of then on top of that, you had a lot of along with Jake not getting jobs, along with Jake being treated like crap, along with Jake getting help from his so-called women. You know, you seen that movie with Lorenz Tate. I'm not going to mention the movie name. You know where he's in as a soldier in Vietnam. You know what his woman does, right? Then you got to deal with the hell that Esau's created. Then you got to deal with your own. Jake trying it with your woman, as well as a heathen trying it with your woman, where you could be at war and your woman's at work, and there's an Edomite boss trying it with her. You know, sometimes women fall. Why? Because certain carrots are dangled in front of them. And then you got that hell. Then Jake dealing with the hell of redlining. Where other heathen nations get loans, or other nations get loans. Get jobs, get things handed to them. Those other nations are not in trouble. And what's redlining? An example of redlining would be redlining has been used to describe discriminatory practices by retailers, both brick and mortar, which is basically your physical shops or stores, and online, which is e-commerce. Reverse redlining is a practice of targeting neighborhoods, mostly non-white, for higher prices or lending on unfair terms such as predatory lending or subprime mortgages, which is what happens to Jake all the time. And even the hell that Jake's gone through with things like this happening, as well, and the racism, where you can go to certain areas, or you live in a certain neighborhood and you got to be indoors by a certain time, like sundown time, sundown neighborhoods, or if you're Jake passing that neighborhood, you got to be through over the bridge before sundown. Why? Because that area, Esau would go about wearing, kidnapping Jake and lynching him, you know. And then the day-to-day racism that Jake's got to deal with on a daily basis. You could be the only one on a bus full of Edomites. They'll be staring at you. This is the kind of stuff they used to do, and I remember this as far as the 80s. It's calmed down a little bit now, but you go to an area, or you bump into some of these Eastern Europeans that have never seen somebody of color before. They'll be staring at you. Ultimately, it's demons, but you know what I mean, right? This is the hell, man. Psalm 73 and 5. They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. That's why the other nations get everything so easily. I'm just building up a little situation here where Jake goes through the hell, the children aspect, losing his children, then the other curses that come along with him. Can't go into every single thing because man, we'll be here all day. But just giving you a little sort of an idea of the hell that Jake's go through. And then on top of that, you got to deal with the fact that these are Israelite babies. A lot of idiots out there would say, we don't care. Their mother's white. Their mother's a devil. Not realizing, why do you call your children your seed? Women don't have seed. Men have seed. Okay, you want to get a little bit transparent with it. Women's vaginas lubricate for penetration. Okay, they don't shoot no live ammo out, so to speak. Men do. We have our forefathers and in our loins, man. Previous generations and all that kind of thing. We got that. That's why women take on the man's last name. That's why the scriptures say, so and so begot, so and so begot, so and so begot. Okay, it's from the seed. That's why when a woman is very much in love with her man and her husband, she wants to have his baby. Why? Because she wants to have, her husband's, future children, the family line, whoever the lady's married into. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as mixed race, man. Numbers 118, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers. according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upward by their polls. Okay, we're the largest, most numerous nation on the planet Earth, man. You know, and we're gonna come in various forms. You know, and we're scattered through all the places we've been in slavery. Isaiah 11:11 breaks that down, and also all the traveling we've done, also all the wars, you know, when we were in slavery, and all the wars when we were in rulership. You know, having concubines, having wives, having so-called one-night stands with women, or having sex with women and not knowing that she got pregnant. We're everywhere, man. We are everywhere. Someone you least expect here walking by, you know, the pastiest devil-looking mofo. There's Jakes who look like that out there, straight up, you know, who look like that. You know, you'd be surprised, man, the way the Lord has hidden Jake. The Lord had to do that. The Lord had to hide us, because if we all had the original look, Esau would say, okay, all them niggas up there, or everybody with a certain amount of melanin in their skin, with kinky hair, you know, hit them with microwave guns or some shit, blow them up, implode them. You know, so the Lord had to hide us, man. You know, and plus these are the curses, and plus these are punishments. Galatians 6:7, you reap what you sow. These are things that we had to go through. Ezekiel 36:19, and I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries according to their way and according to their doings. I judged them. Yeah. I mean, so the fact of the matter is, those children are Israelites. Number two is the fact that look at the curses, how they follow Jake, no matter where Jake goes. They were in Europe, but the American law still, you know, went on them. Ultimately, it's the ultimate hatred that Esau has for Jake, man. Because Esau knows, innit, Edomite women are going to gravitate towards Jake. You know, it's just natural. You know, life always goes towards the sun, innit? Jake is like sunshine, man. Esau's like flipping a grey, rainy, cold day in London in a cave, and Jake is like that tropical island, man, where all the women want to gravitate to. You know what I mean? Ezekiel 36:19, Isaiah 11:11. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people. Now, if you look at those Jakes and Eves that were there, okay, some of them, Eves probably did get married to Edomites, so you got like these sort of swarthy looking Edomites out there, you know, all these so-called Edomite women that look really attractive. You know, they're still Edomites, but they get those looks from, you know, however you want to, the maternal side out of Jake. But you are wherever your father is, which is true. And you know, there's a lot of Jake, you know, a lot of wheat amongst the tares, man. Some of them are blended in, some of them are still standing out, you know. And the Lord's gonna come and get them, wherever they're scattered throughout the world, whether they speak English or not, no matter how they look. If you're an Israelite, you're an Israelite. Isaiah 11:11, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord, Yahweh shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush and from Elam and from Shinar and from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. Verse 12, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, that's the northern kingdom, and gather together the dispersed of Judah, that's the southern kingdom, from the four corners of the earth. Okay, and the four corners of the earth isn't just Africa, Folky, or you other camps out there that don't acknowledge the Israelite foreigners, or Jakes that have Jake daddies, but their mother is a heathen or an Israelite foreigner. Okay, this ain't no so-called black thing. Okay, all the 12 tribes, you know, are beautiful in the respective particular look. Jeremiah 12:9. Mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds around about are against her. Come ye assemble, all the beasts of the field come to devour. You know, like a bird does have many different colors specks. You know, yellow, gray, brown, whatever particular color it is. You know, it's not one particular way. Diversity. Same way the children of Israel. They're diverse. Very diverse. Let's watch a little more.
If they asked me, then I should demonstrate this at playtime. And this used to really, really upset me. And then the other thing he did was he sat me at the back of the classroom, away from all of the other children, and he would give me jigsaw puzzles and colouring books. And he would tell the other children that I didn't have the same brain as white children. I wasn't being taught like the other children. I was just left to play at the back of the class.
And when you were racially...
So that's Esau for you, okay? And that's Esau for you, man. That's the devil. Okay, these are the kind of things that have followed Jake throughout various incarnations and time. Still to this day, this is happening. You know, and this wasn't too long ago. This is like the 1940s. You know, thank the Lord we're in 2022 and moving ahead. Anyway, all praises to Yahweh Bashem Yashai Bashem Rakah Kadash.